Hello again, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk to you about Blue Star Ferns, and this is my big specimen Blue Star Fern. I've had this for over 4 years now, I think, and I can barely get it in the shot. It's got so big. I think it's probably got 3 times bigger than when I first got it now. I've repotted it twice and it really is one of my favorite houseplants. I love the subtle hues of blue that you get on it in different sunlight. I love the structure of the leaves. I love the shape of the leaves and the fact that it grows really big as well. I think it just looks like something from Jurassic Park. I think it looks really like a prehistoric plant. I love it. I can just imagine it living in the undergrowth when the dinosaurs were running around. But some people really struggle with this plant. I've read in the comments on some of my other Blue Star Fern videos that people buy them and they start off looking good, but over time they lose more and more fronds until there's virtually none left and it seems to dry out too quickly. So if that's your experience and you've got a Blue Star Fern that you're struggling with, then I'm going to explain why this is happening and how you can relatively simply stop it from happening, and you can grow a Blue Star Fern as big and as lush as this one. So if you've struggled to keep a Blue Star Fern alive, 90% of the time, in my opinion, it's going to be because of an issue with watering. You see, the main issue with these plants is the root ball is very fibrous and very dense. And what can happen, firstly, they can get pot bound and get too big for the pot quite quickly. And in fact, I've bought small Blue Star Ferns from nurseries and they could almost do with a repot straight away. But besides that, it's easy to underwater these plants. Because the root ball is so thick, you can put a little bit in the top and it doesn't penetrate the thick mass of roots that are in there. So you've really got to be careful when watering that you thoroughly water the entire root ball. So the best way to do this is to not only water it from the top, but also water it from the bottom. So the first thing you need to do is make sure it's in a pot with drainage holes in the bottom. That's really important. And the second thing to do is when you water it, maybe bring it to a sink or outside where you can put plenty of water in the top so you can see it draining out the bottom. But the other issue is potentially it can run around the sides of the pot down the inside and not penetrate all the way through the root ball. So if you can put it on a tray or put the plug in your sink and water it so the water's coming out the bottom, then leave it in the tray for a good half an hour or so it's sitting in water. And what this will do is give the plant a chance to take the water back up from the bottom and absorb it into the root ball some more and really give it time to properly saturate that root ball. You can double check by using a plant moisture meter. You can put the probe down into the root ball and just check the amount of moisture from the top, the middle and the bottom, and that way you can be sure that the moisture's penetrated the mass of roots. And this is the main issue. People think they're watering the plant and they may be putting water in there, but it's just not getting to the entire root ball. So maybe a few bits around the edges might be all right, but the main plant is struggling for water, and over time it's getting drier and drier and drier. So generally I would say give these plants more water than you think and make sure it's properly watered. So once you have done that and the root ball is properly saturated, you still need to give it time to dry out a little bit. You don't want to keep it sopping wet all the time. So give it a good water, make sure it's thoroughly watered like I've just explained, then leave it. Wait for it to dry out a little bit, check with your moisture meter, see where it is, and just as it starts to dry out, then you can do the same again and give it a good solid water. So rather than a little bit often, give it a good water and then leave it. Now I'm not going to say leave it a week or leave it 2 weeks because it depends on the time of year, it depends on where you're keeping your plant, where you live in the world. It could dry out in 3 days, it could dry out in 3 weeks, but the trick is to keep an eye on it. And if it's looking dry, that's generally the reason. But give it a really good water and make sure that water is thoroughly through the plant. And that's the main key. So have a look at the root ball as well. If you've got a smaller plant, it's a bit harder with this one because it's huge now. But if you can pop it out of the pot and just inspect the root ball, is there any soil left? And if there isn't, maybe consider repotting it into a bigger pot and giving it some water, moisture retentive soil. You can get specialist fern mixes with like a loamy soil, maybe some bark chippings and some coir, something like that that will retain moisture but not stay soaking. You're still going to want the drainage. It doesn't want to stay sopping wet, but you do want it to be able to retain some moisture, because these plants do require more moisture than the average. They don't need a huge amount of fertilizer. They're epiphytes, and like most epiphytes, they don't need a massive amount of fertilizer. If you're going to, I would fertilize half strength general houseplant fertilizer, and do that maybe a couple of times throughout the year. Once as the growing season starts in spring, early summer, and then maybe once halfway through the summer, and then once at the end, something like that. It really doesn't need a huge amount of fertilizer. It won't help it if you give it more. I think that pretty much wraps it up for this video. They're well worth having a crack at keeping these plants. I think they're beautiful. They're lovely when they get to this size, and if you can just spend a little bit of time getting to know them and understanding how much water requirements they need, they're actually relatively straightforward to look after. This one is not in an optimum location, but it's quite happy, as you can see, and it grows bigger and better every year. So why not give it a go for yourself, and let me know how you get on. You can send me a picture on Instagram at houseplants, and if you've got any other comments or questions, then do let me know down in the comments below. All right, that's it pretty much. Thanks very much for watching. Please give it a thumbs up if you found it useful, and subscribe for more houseplant videos.